Welcome to the Dyno Six Pack Dynasty Football Podcast. My name is Jordan Schultz, and I'll be your host for today. With the NFL draft less than a week away, it's time for Dynasty GMs to start getting acquainted with the upcoming rookie class. Today, we're going to break down the tight ends. Before we get started, though, first things first, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you can see more content just like this. While you're at it, make sure to become an all-access member over at Fantasy Six Pack as well. When you do that, you get access to our award-winning rankings, all of our draft cheat sheets, DFS projections, our betting tools, and a ton of other great content. On top of all that, you get access to our Discord forum where you get direct access to us where we can answer questions about your fantasy teams. Go to fantasy6pack.net/plans to sign up today. All right, let's get started on this year's tight ends. Kind of a quick little breakdown on it. This is one of the deeper tight end classes I can really remember. I've been playing Dynasty football for about 12 years now, and I can't think of a time where there was this many tight ends that I was excited about. Right off at the top, I think we have two like legit franchise cornerstones that I feel like they'll be pretty productive by the end of their first year. Years 2 and 3, they're really going to be guys that you like to have on your team, though. Behind them, there's 6 other tight ends that I think have tight end 1 potential within their first 3 seasons. Obviously, with tight end, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. Probably the position takes the longest for the guys to acclimate to at the next level. So you got to be patient with these guys, but this is a good year to need a tight end class for sure. Starting off at the top, we have 2 guys in kind of my franchise cornerstone category. We have Michael Mayer and Dalton Kincaid. For Michael Mayer, I do have him at number 1. The only real knock against him is he doesn't have that game-breaking speed to really stretch the defense out. Outside of that, though, he can pretty much do everything else. He can run the full route tree. His hands are already pretty elite. He led his team in receiving touchdowns both of the past 2 seasons. So he's very, very productive out of the tight end spot. Over those 2 years, he combined for over 1,600 yards and 16 touchdowns. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what you can expect at the next level. He has the athleticism, not quite to the level of the next guy, but he has enough wiggle to make guys miss. And it doesn't really help us directly as fantasy owners, but he's a really, really good blocker, and that's going to help him get on the field early in the year. Moving on to number 2, we have Dalton Kincaid. He's kind of your more prototypical, basketball player turned tight end. Super, super athletic, can create mismatches when he's up against smaller defenders. He's not just like one of those really like raw athletic projects either. He's a really polished field stretcher and he has reliable hands. His last year at Utah, he had 70 catches for 890 yards and 8 scores with only 2 drops the entire season. Not that great of a blocker, but that doesn't matter a ton. A good coach isn't really going to ask him to do a lot of that. They're going to line him up more on the slot and outside as a receiving threat. Where the things he does well can kind of be highlighted a little bit better. If anybody has Kincaid at number 1 over Mayer, which I know a lot of people do, I can't really fault it. I would argue that the upside is higher here with Kincaid. I just feel like Mayer's got a little bit better of a floor. I feel like his game is going to be able to fit into pretty much any offensive scheme. So I'll go that way, but like I said, can't really knock anybody the other way. I think both of these guys are going to be drafted kind of between that like 108 to 206 range in rookie drafts, which is perfectly fine price as far as I'm concerned. I'm super fine paying that. Just again, you got to be patient. 3-4 games and they're not producing, you don't want to cut bait. You want to make sure these are kind of long-term investments that in years 2 and 3 you're really going to be glad you did. Moving down to the next tier, we have 3 guys that are kind of considered like potential tight end 1s down the road. We got Luke Musgrave at number 3, Darnell Washington number 4, and Sam LaPorta at number 5. All of these guys right now can be had in the second rounds or later in your rookie draft. So, really, really great price. Like I said, they all have the potential to develop into tight end 1s for your fantasy teams. You just might have to be prepared for them to spend most of their entire rookie season on your taxi squads, more of like a year 2 and 3 investment. Darnell Washington here. Really, outside of Anthony Richardson, Washington was like the star of the combine. He showed off his freak athletic ability, has that rare size, speed, and body control that not a lot of people have at any size, let alone somebody his size. He was mostly used as a blocker in college. His teammate, Brock Bowers, is one of the better tight end prospects that we've had come out in the last few years. So he kind of really ate up a lot of the targets at the tight end position there. But I do think there's a little bit of untapped potential. I thought there was untapped potential. And then when he performed at the combine, that pretty much all but cemented it for him. If he could fall into a system that would use him more as a pass catcher, I think he could be a nice fantasy producer. Definitely has a risky floor. Like the floor is like one of those guys that's really just a blocking tight end and nothing else. But I don't think the team would draft him and just kind of use him there. I think they'd like to get him out as a receiver as well, too, and like really showcase everything he can do. Coming in at number 4 in this class, we have Sam LaPorta. he has been one of my biggest risers since I've really started digging into this class. He can play inline as a blocker, can line up outside, you can put him in the slot, he can do a lot of different things, kind of more similar to like a Michael Mayer. He also, like Michael Mayer, he led Iowa in receiving both of his final 2 years there. In both seasons had over 50 catches, over 650 yards, and he played in like a fairly run-focused offense. So his numbers could have been even better in a better system. As long as he can cut the drops out, and I'm pretty confident he will, there's more focused drops. I think it's a matter of kind of, when, not if he becomes a fantasy starter. He doesn't have as high of a ceiling as the guys ahead of him, but I do feel like he has a pretty decently safe floor, where I'd be surprised if in his second and third years, he's not a guy that's like at least a tight end 2 for your tight end premium leagues. Wrapping up this tier, we have Luke Musgrave. I feel like there's 2 things that are kind of suppressing his ranking a little bit. He missed most of his senior year with an injury. And then on top of that, Oregon State's a very, very run-heavy team. We didn't really get the chance to showcase what he could do in the passing game. So I think had he been in a different system, I think we could have a different conversation about Luke Musgrave right now. He has that prototypical pass-catching profile that we love from our tight ends. Again, though, between kind of working back from injury and everything, he's going to need some time to develop. But I do think this is like a good buy low. I think most years he would be like a tight end 1 or a tight end 2 in most classes. He just happens to fall in with this year where there's a lot of really, really good tight ends. So that'll wrap up tier 2. Moving on down to the next tier, number 3, we kind of call these like our potential future starting tight ends. They're guys that I more likely would expect to be kind of high end tight end 2s for your tight end premium leagues, but there is a chance that they can develop into more there. All of these guys here are big, 6'4", 250 pounds or bigger. So a lot to work with here for a coach that kind of knows what he's doing. First guy we have in this tier, he's actually number 7 for me. So I have Tucker Kraft number 6, Luke Schoonmaker number 7, and Zack Kuntz number 8. Luke Schoonmaker, he's the guy that I have. His rank is definitely based on projection of him improving as a pass catcher and a blocker. Like Michael Mayer, his blocking, it will help him get on the field earlier in the career, but he does still have a little bit of work to do there. He's definitely not like flawless there by any means. He is a good route runner. He really doesn't know how to use his 6'5" frame to go up and make plays. Very athletic for the way he's built. Tucker Kraft and Zack Kuntz. I feel like both of them, again, kind of similar to Luke Musgrave, they'd be going higher in drafts this year if they weren't battling injuries most of their last year in college. They're both decent enough to get by as run blockers right now, but of course, their biggest draw for us is their ability as pass catchers. Tucker Kraft, he started the year off, he got injured in the very first game, missed 6 games, had to get ankle surgery, was able to come back in midseason, pretty much step right back into the same exact role that he was playing before. In about a half season, he finished with 27 catches, 348 yards, and 3 scores. And he was a huge, huge part of their run to the FCS National Championship for South Dakota State, I believe. Last guy in this tier here is Zack Kuntz, and this is a guy that it's a big projection, but I mean, when you look at like his measurables, you'll see why. He's 6'7", 255 pounds, ran a really fast 4.55 40 and had a 40-inch vertical at the combine. So when you're talking about like the athletes that you talk about that were built in the lab, it's this type of guy right here. He's definitely raw, but like we see, the tools are there for somebody to mold. Like the rest of these guys, most of these guys in this group are going to be going kind of late 3rd and 4th rounds of rookie drafts. If I have leagues that have taxi squad spots, I want to come away with at least one of these guys, and if not 2 in every single league, just throw them in there, see what happens down the road. Next tier down are kind of what we'd call like kind of our project tight end 2s here. Wouldn't really expect these guys to be hugely fantasy relevant, but they are guys just to kind of keep an eye on. If they get surprise draft capital and go on day 2, then obviously kind of move them up a little bit in your rankings. The main guy in this group that I'm interested in would be Josh Whyle out of Cincinnati. He has shown flashes that suggest he could be a nice pass catching tight end, kind of in the shorter and intermediate routes working underneath the linebackers. He has enough wiggle that he can kind of catch it, extend plays a little bit in the short area. Obviously, we're not talking about a superstar here. I don't know that you can really expect anything from anybody in this group before year 3, including Josh Whyle. Like I mentioned before, best case scenario for these guys is they raise their game enough to produce tight end 2 production by the end of their first contract, and then maybe they get a starting job somewhere on their second contract. Not looking to draft anybody here in this tier, which also includes Brenton Strange, Will Mallory, Cameron Latu, and Payne Durham. Not looking to draft any of these guys before like the late 4th, 5th, later rounds. Most of these guys will probably go undrafted, assuming they go on day 3. Like I imagine they probably will. So not a lot of reason to pay attention now, but just names to kind of keep in the back of your head just in case something does change between now and the season. Last tier we have here, we're just going to kind of skim right through it. These are kind of the guys that I think are more practice squad depth players. And we got Blake Whitehart, Leonard Taylor, Daniel Barker, and Davis Allen there. Again, not really looking much for these guys here. I think down the road, maybe they become way, way, way back in tight end twos for like your 16 to 20 team leagues. But it would take a lot to break right, a lot of development for it to happen for any of these guys to really become relevant anytime soon. So that's going to wrap up this tight end group. A little bit quicker, but I mean, I remember years where there was one or two, like Cole Kmet's here. I think he was really the only tight end I was interested in that year. I can remember riding Cole Kmet's the only one to pay attention to, and even then, not a lot to worry about. Obviously, he turned out okay this year, but I mean, still, he's not a superstar by any means, and there's a lot of years tight end is like that, and this is a year that I think can kind of buck that trend a little bit. So especially late in the draft, 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, I want to throw a lot of dart throws and grab as many of these guys as I can, throw them on the taxi squad for a couple of years, see what happens at that point. Again, just a couple reminders, hit that like and subscribe button. There's something you'd like me to talk about, or any tips or suggestions, please send them my way. You can find me on Twitter at Dyno NFL. And a reminder, make sure to become an all access member over at Fantasy Six Pack. You get rankings, cheat sheets, DFS, predictions, betting tools, and then most importantly, access to our Discord forum where you can message me directly, ask me questions about your fantasy team, and I'd be glad to help you out with those things. Thank you guys for tuning in. You guys have a good night.